You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
The following production is part of the We Be Geeks podcast collective.
Ian, look at this.
What, it's a police box? What on earth is he doing here? I mean, these things are usually on the street. I feel it. I feel it. Do you feel it?
Faint vibration.
It's alive.
Earth Station Who, a fun mashup celebrating nearly 50 years of Doctor Who universe. Hold tight. You never know where the TARDIS is going next.
You're probably a bit confused right now. I broke the glass. It's all come back to me.
This. What is this?
That's my ship.
What?
Let me take it from the top. Hello, I'm the Doctor. I'm a traveller in space and time. And that thing buried down there is called a TARDIS. Time and relative dimension in space. You're gonna love this.
Hey there, listeners. It's time to take a flight on the Concorde and travel back to prehistoric times. I guess it was prehistoric times. A long, long time ago on a planet we know pretty darn well. It was time flight, going back into the 1980s, and we are going to the end of season 19 of Doctor Who. It'll be a fun story to talk all about, and we have a great crew to join in. Of course, we have Mr. Mike Gordon.
Howdy.
You ready for a little adventure into the past, sir?
You know what? This is early 80s, and it reeks of it.
Oh, very much so. And Mary Ogle.
Hi, everybody. It is great to be here.
Oh, it's going to be a fun one to talk about. And we are joined from formerly of Concaster Burris, Matthew Kresal.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome, everybody. And
it is too long, sir.
It has been way too long, actually.
It has been a minute. Yes, it has.
You know, I think we were on another doctor the last time you were here. But that, that's that could be any time, wibbly wobbly timey, Yep. You know how it goes. So how have you been? Have you been surviving the pandemic and everything?
Yeah, I've been doing fairly well. It's been a very interesting year. I've been doing a lot of writing, so I've got some short fiction that's due out. I've got a not at all related to Doctor Who novel hopefully due out later this year that I actually wrote a couple of years back, but the pandemic gave me a good excuse to go find a publisher for it and do some work on it. And I had my first nonfiction book published, so,
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. It has been a year, but hasn't it been for everybody?
Well, you've been pretty steady with those reviews coming out almost weekly that you're posting to the Earth Station Who Facebook group.
Yes, but it's been an interesting year as a Big Finish fan as well, and going back and watching Classic Who and New Who as well. So it's there's definitely enough to keep me busy over on Warp Factor. So for people who haven't read any of my work, if you go over to warpfactor.com, I am probably somewhere on the front page.
Well, that is awesome, man. That is really, really awesome. Congratulations on all that, though.
Thank you, sir.
It's been great. So he's been productive over the last year. What have we all done, So, thanks
just
for making
this.
Yeah, exactly. We've been just talking about Doctor Who. And so there's no new real Doctor Who news to talk about, but, we definitely would love to hear from you guys at home. Feedback at earthstationwho.com. Definitely let us know what's going on, how you guys are surviving. What have you guys been, dealing with? What have you guys been, watching, talking about? What Doctor Who have you been, catching up on? Because you've had a lot of time between Doctor Who episodes, so there's plenty of time to catch up. So definitely would love to hear from you. And, if you're new to the podcast, thank you for listening. As always, we appreciate it. All right. Like we said earlier, no new Doctor Who news. So we are going to jump right back to 1982. That's right, folks. We are looking at March 22nd, 1982 till March 30th. So I think this was the era when Doctor Who was on twice a week at the time.
Yes.
If I remember correctly. And so you got this over with real quick. So you got the four episodes.
Just like ripping a Band-Aid off.
Exactly.
Seemed like 40 million years.
And this one, had, it was stacked because you had Earthshock right before this one. And this story literally picks up right after Earthshock. And then this is the end of the 19th season, and it goes right into the 20th season, which is the big anniversary year where they tried, regaining a lot of interest with Doctor Who, and each storyline had either a character from the past or a villain from the past that hasn't been seen in a while coming back.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to see how this one fits into that. And you got a master story out of it also, which is nice because you actually had the master in disguise and, ripping off the mask and everything. And it's like, and the first time I saw this, I had no clue that the master was in it. So
I didn't either.
Like,
This is the first time I've seen this.
Yeah,
and
I didn't either.
And I was surprised as we got to that second episode, sort of the end of it. I was like, wow, this seems to be wrapping up. I'm like, I know there's 2 more episodes, but this seems to be like they're defeating the bad guy, and then nope, the mask comes off, and we hear that all too familiar laugh.
You're a fool, Doctor. It's like, oh yeah, the naivety. And I've always been fascinated with the Concorde, and the idea of the Concorde featuring in these stories was pretty awesome. I actually got to see. Growing up outside of Washington, D.C., I got to see the Concorde land multiple times at Dulles Airport. And it was beautiful to see. It was a really sharp-looking airplane. And its engines didn't sound like any other commercial flight you ever heard. Because, when it was flying overhead, they couldn't do over land. They couldn't, supersonic flights because of the sonic boom. But it still had a distinct sound to the engines, and it was a neat experience. And it wasn't used all that great in this episode.
No.
Well, it shows up every episode.
Yeah, I mean, it's there in one way or another.
There's even 2 of them.
Yeah.
And they leave one of them in the past.
Yes.
One of them that just leave behind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Though they almost didn't. It's one of the great behind-the-scenes story of this is that Peter Grimblade, who wrote the episode, did the whole thing, and it got commissioned and everything without anybody ever going to British Airways to ask for permission to use it. And British Airways...
What?
Yeah. British Airways got the script, and John Nathan Turner tells a story in his memoirs, which are available as an audiobook from Big Finish for people who haven't heard them. They're a wonderful insight into the making of late 70s and 80s Doctor Who. And there's a story John Nathan Turner tells that they were at a meeting, and the British Airways people are sitting there going through the script saying, you've got to change this, you've got to change that. And they're sort of pontificating and going, we really don't want to do this. And John Nathan Turner figured out the perfect way to get them to do it, which is he leaned over to whoever his assistant was at the meeting and just a little too loudly said, so what time are we meeting with the Air France people? and at that point, British Airways' tune almost completely changed to the point they got a Concorde on the ground. They got unlimited stock footage. The British Airways people even sent over models of the Concorde that ended up in the episode. So it's kind of funny to think that they basically commissioned a whole story around the Concorde before anybody thought to get permission to actually, British Airways actually let us film on the Concorde.
And they actually did film in Heathrow, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that looked familiar. I've only been to Heathrow once, twice, because I arrived and then I came back. So.
Oh, I've been to Heathrow just flying in and out of, because I had to do a usability study down in Wales. So we flew into Heathrow, and then took a small plane down to Cardiff.
Mm-hmm.
So it was interesting because you actually got real airport scenes, and then the rest was just like bleh.
Terrible.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was actually kind of fun and nostalgic to see the Concorde. I mean, it's funny that it's, represents the epitome of technology in the 80s as they're representing it, and now it's gone. I mean, the era is already over.
Oh God, yeah. No, that was a sad ending to that also.
Yeah.
But it was neat to see. I did like the flight crew on the Doctor's Concorde. They were,
the captain.
The captain was pretty awesome.
Captain Stapley. He was actually one of the only decent characters. The
well,
other
exactly.
ones were pretty blah.
Oh God, yeah. They're really, and I love how the Doctor pulled the unit card in this one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I thought that was cool.
That was good.
Mm-hmm. Oh, say hi to the Brigadier for me. Oh, he might be a general by now.
Yes. Well, it's like
pretty fun.
It's part of that trend that started the previous season. I think because Ian Levine had been brought in as the official continuity person, that the show is suddenly beginning to realize, hey, we've got a 17, 18-year history that we can go back into and pull stuff from as we go, because it's the point where you start getting all those kinds of little references and stuff. And going back to what you were saying earlier, Mike, starting with Earthshock in the last story, all the way to Warriors of the Deep, which is the beginning of, not the next season, but the season after. Every single story, every single episode we're going to watch is going to have some kind of returning villain or element in it. And it's kind of weird to think that Time Flight fits into that. Even more so because Peter Grimwade, again, wrote the whole story before somebody sat up and went, hey, let's put the Master in this while we're at it. But that seems to be the story of a lot of 80s Who, that with these Master stories that people would come into the office with stories, and then all of a sudden John Nathan Turner or somebody would sit up and go, hey, we haven't done a Master story in a while. Let's see if Anthony Ainley is available and see if we can put him in.
Exactly, because you think, if you go back and think about it, you think, oh, Ainley's Master popped up all the time during the Fifth Doctor's era, but he didn't really, because the only time you saw him was in Castrovelva before this.
Yeah.
And then you had this episode, and then after this, you don't see him till, I think, the Five Doctors.
King's Demons comes in between.
Oh, King's Demons, that's right, when they get that stupid robot.
Yeah. Don't feel bad for forgetting it. King's Demon is a forgettable story if ever there was one.
Oh, we reviewed it. We know.
Yeah, that's why we forgot it.
Exactly.
But I mean, this one's pretty forgettable too, frankly. I mean, it is not a very well-written story, and you can tell that they slotted the Master in at the last minute. I mean, that's pretty obvious.
Well, the character of Khalid was not a strong character at all for a bad guy or anything like that.
What was even the point of that? There's no reason for him to be chanting his gibberish, and it just it doesn't make any sense.
I was almost fully expecting him to be going, Baruch atah Adonai Elohim, it's like, with what he was saying, it was just like, oh God, don't do this to Jewish people. Please don't do it. And it was just like, it was really, really bad. Exactly. And those blob creatures that they had.
They look like a second-class Michelin man.
Oh, they made the Michelin Man look really good. They actually kind of reminded me of the antimatter bad guys in the Three Doctors.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sort of.
Yeah, that's what they kind of reminded me. And the
Seraphim?
then the big special effect.
No, the plasmatrons.
The plasmatrons, right. Yeah. But they had the bubbles.
Cool name for a punk band, 80s.
Yeah.
That's true.
But they had the bubbles all over Peter Davison and Nissa. It was just like, oh, God. Yeah. It's poor Sarah Sutton, it's just like, really?
Yeah. I mean, they have a thing for bubbles in 70s and 80s.
Oh, definitely.
I'll tell you what, when they got this script and they sent it over to the special effects people, like whoever had the, what are those video effect boxes back then called? They used every trick in the box.
The chroma keys?
No, not chroma keys, but it was something like, oh man, I wish I could think of the name of it. But
I want to say Paintbox, but I think that's a little later.
Yeah, I don't think that's.
But anyway, they were using every tool they could. Like, I mean, they used models in this, overlapping video effects, split screen, like every little thing they could try in this.
They were
one.
desperate to help.
Yeah, they really were.
I mean,
it's amazing how little of them worked.
Well, the problem is that it was the last story of the season, and nobody had learned the lesson yet from, the Graham Williams era, that if you're going to do a story that's going to require a lot of special effects and big sets, you do not put it at the very end of the season.
Yeah, there's no money.
No, there was no budget there, obviously. But also, it was just, even like when the TARDIS first materialized at Heathrow, and they just used a still image of it above the runway. It was just like, really?
Yeah, that was really bad.
Yeah.
That was really bad.
At least the TARDIS just didn't pop out of existence like it did.
Yeah, like it did in the last story we reviewed.
Yeah. I mean, they could have at least chroma keyed in, a model of it spinning around in circles or something.
Yes, anything.
Oh, yeah. But it was just really badly done. And, the TARDIS, I don't know what it was, but the TARDIS itself had seen better days. It was dirty. It was awful. And it was like, even the windows, you could tell it was cheap plastic in the windows. It wasn't, they weren't even using glass at this point.
The production values were terrible. The poor air traffic controller guy sitting in the dark corner all alone. Come on.
With one monitor, it was just like, yeah.
And this one suffers also from, I think, I find this really prevalent during this era, that there are these high, I want to say, I guess I'm doing it a credit by calling these high concept, these plots and these things that they're sort of introducing are these high concepts ideas that really I find very difficult. I don't think they do a great job at making them relatable to people or integrating them well into a story or a plot. Like the concept might be interesting, but it's not executed very well in my mind. And sometimes the concepts are just, I don't know if they're just too beyond my understanding, or if they're just crap.
They're just
if they're just a load of crap.
No, they're just dumb.
No, this is not some high concept that they took from anything real. They just kind of said, hey, let's do this because nobody's going to know the difference.
Well,
I mean,
go ahead.
Sorry. In some ways, I mean, it's the early 80s version of Space Museum from the first Doctor's era, and that you have a first episode that does a lot of setting up mystery and atmosphere and expectations that there's going to be something really interesting that's going to happen. And you get around to episodes 2, 3, and 4, and it just turns into a bit of a runaround. And it does get it, some of the stuff is just borderline parodying, Doctor Who parodying itself for that matter. And just good chunks of it just don't make a lick of sense. Like, why is the Master dressing up like Fu Manchu?
Yeah, kind of culturally insensitive there too. That costume.
Among his many other evils. Well, at least that. Okay, all right. I'm gonna give the story just a little tin of credit here, because I asked the same thing, but then once it's revealed that the Master crashed in 140 million years in Earth's past, and he was trying to signal a way out. I could imagine that he wasn't going to beam like, hey, everybody, it's the Master. Help me. Can you help me?
They could have, there were better ways to do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to adopt a character like Khalid was not the best move either. But I could at least understand why he would be disguised.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
But all the stuff about the psychokinetic fields and the plasmatrons and the plasmatons, sorry, and Nyssa being involved and the Zeraphins and this Gestalt intelligence and a split personality with this intelligence. I was just like, man, they're just compounding, like they're just not doubling down, they're like quadrupling down on all of this, like
all the bad tropes,
creating like, this induction loop. It's an induction loop up its own butt is what this story is. It's just kind of like
it was really bad. And
that's
I
the
don't think
headline I want on the Facebook post.
I don't think they ever touched on those aliens ever again, did they, Matthew?
Not that I'm aware of, and I definitely not in Big Finish, and I have to admit my knowledge of the novels is not, as absolute as it is with Big Finish. But I don't think that the books ever touch upon it either.
No,
I can't imagine that there's anything here that anybody goes, I want to do something with that.
Yeah. Other than maybe sit down and take the basic ideas and do a full-fledged remake of it. There was the Regenerations fan anthology that was done that came out last year, which was basically the idea of the War Doctor realizing that somebody is going through his story, his past, and rewriting history, and it's basically an opportunity for people to go and write alternate reality versions of various stories. And whoever decided they were going to do the Fifth Doctor picked Time Flight as the one they were going to rewrite. And I have to say, they created an infinitely better version of it in prose, running about 30 pages.
So in addition, with all this going on and all the crap that I mentioned, there are at least 3 items in this story that I did appreciate. And one of them you just mentioned, Matthew, when the Zerafins were talking about regeneration, I was like, ooh, I don't think I've ever heard of another alien race or another race on Doctor Who talk about regeneration, like that they could do it. And I was like, that's pretty cool that there's another species out there that can regenerate like the Time Lords can, or like the Gallifreyans can. I like that idea. I don't like the way that they just threw it in here, but I like the idea. I also like the idea of the Concorde disappearing and going into the past and then having to go back and retreat it. I think the first episode, it kind of sets it up and you're like, oh, I'm intrigued by that idea. And then the third thing that I really appreciated was, after the Master appears he appears at the end of the second episode, and at the beginning of the third episode, right away, the Doctor's laughing at how, ignorant the Doctor is as far as like being surprised that it's the Master's behind this. And, the Master looks around and he sees that the Doctor is at this point surrounded by he's got the Professor with him and then a couple of the flight crew, right? Captain Stapley and a couple of other people. And he says the line, and I love this. This is one of my favorite Master lines. He says, "How you love the company of fools." And I'm like, it's so true. Like, for everything that we love about the Doctor and how cool he is and, how he, does the right thing a lot of times and how he cares, et cetera, there is a case to be made that the Doctor constantly surrounds himself. Like, he likes being the smartest guy in the room. And he likes being the guy who knows what's going on. Sometimes the only one that knows what's going on. And everybody else is like, what's going on? We don't understand. And he's like, don't worry, I will, it sort of like strokes his own ego in a lot of ways. And that's why I think I do appreciate Nyssa to an extent, because she can call him on it. Like, she's smart and she knows what's going on. Unfortunately, a lot of these stories seem to like concentrate on taking her out so that she doesn't know what he's doing a lot of times.
Well, and also they kept undercutting her here with the whole stupid empath storyline. I mean, that it did not work at all. I felt incredibly sorry for the actress.
There was no reason for it at all.
No.
It's not like she has psychic powers or that, she reaches out to other aliens and stuff. Nowhere in this last series since they introduced her in Keep Her Tracking have we ever seen that. Nope.
Well, there's the bit at the beginning of Kinda where something affects her and causes that to happen, which it was also part of the original character brief to an extent. After they got Johnny Byrne's permission to keep featuring the character, they were going to explore that. But nobody ever came in with a good enough story, apparently, to do that. And it took the early Big Finish audios actually featuring Nyssa with the Fifth Doctor before anybody got around to that. And if you go back and you listen to was it Land of the Dead in particular, basically anything leading up to Lance Parkin's Primeval, which I think is right after that first McGann season, that's, I think, released 23 or 24, they finally started picking up with some of that. But it was something that they had planned on doing. But again, like I think a lot with the story in general, the execution is completely lacking.
Yes. I mean, it's not that you couldn't do something with the concept. It's just that it's way overplayed here.
Exactly.
And so she's just annoying. It doesn't contribute to the story. It doesn't move it along.
No.
In fact, I think it holds it back.
No. Because fortunately, we have Tegan there to show just how annoying a companion can be.
Yes.
Very good point.
Like, I was like, okay, we're down one companion. Now, we've just gotten rid of Adric, which, they're really heartbroken about. The doctor's really heartbroken about that at the beginning. Nope, can't go back. No.
Nope. Do not ever ask me that, ever.
Nope. That's the one thing I can't do.
I guess Matthew can pick up a little bit of a check in this one because he does pop up. I was like, whoa, there he is.
Yeah.
Even though they were down one and they've got two other companions, they still struggle with trying to find something interesting for both of them to get them busy, to give them something to do. And Tegan is just a third wheel in this, and she's
so much of a third wheel in this one, dude. They leave her behind.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
And they didn't even notice.
Yep.
Yep. They just fly off without her.
Yeah.
I was surprised, though. My impression, because I haven't seen a lot from this era, so my impression was always that after Tegan got taken accidentally and traveled with the doctor, that she was looking for any excuse to go back to her time period and to her regular life. And here she has that opportunity, and she's really adamant about, even though with the effects of Earthshock, she's so adamant about staying with the doctor. She has no interest in going back to her life, which I thought was, she even parodies being a stewardess at one point, when she's telling the crew to let go, to join, to board, they can board the Concorde now. At the end, she does so in a way that's like, yeah, she's over this job.
Yeah. I mean, there was an explanation for that scripted, and they talk about it a bit in the info text on the DVD release and on the Blu-ray of the season, that there was supposed to be an explanation for that. Peter Grimwade had gone into a whole thing where they had realized that because she had been gone for months, she might potentially be in trouble, but also that she had decided that traveling with the doctor was closer to what she had wanted to do to begin with, becoming a stewardess and trying to travel the world. And I have to admit, I don't understand the reasoning behind this, given that how much of the story is a runaround and there's not much depth to it. That's the thing that Eric Sayward chose to cut when he got around to being the script editing this. That was the bit he decided to cut out of the story.
Yeah, it's like they went out of their way to create
poor
cardboard
Janet.
characters.
He must have had something against Janet that day.
I mean, that's the biggest problem with this is that there is no characterization at all. You don't care about anybody. I'm not even sure I cared about the doctor in this one. It's just they mouth their lines knowing that they're terrible. I don't think anybody's even really trying, except the guy who's playing Captain Stapley.
Oh, he was awesome.
He was
the best character in this one.
Well, I'll give it to Ainley too. I mean, we had, like I said, we just talked about, or we just reviewed a third Doctor story with Delgado as the Master. Last episode?
The episode
and here
before that one.
Oh, I'm sorry, the episode before that one. And I don't know what days are anymore. So here we get Ainley doing his version, and I don't think I've ever watched like back to back or relatively back to back, like their interpretation of the Masters so close together. And there are certainly a lot of similarities, but there are, I mean, Delgado is wonderful. But Ainley is really good too. And I think he is having fun with this. Obviously he's having a blast, as Khalid, because that just is wacky. But he's chewing scenery as the master, and his scenes with the Doctor are the only scenes that are interesting with Peter Davison, in my opinion, in this story.
I could see that. I really could see that. The Doctor was very dull. It almost like there was one scene where he was like sitting at the base of the TARDIS and he was looking like he was sleeping. I said, "Oh, he must have read the rest of the script or something." And it was
maybe they won't notice me.
I did love it though when he climbed into the TARDIS when it was sitting on its side, and the other two climb in after him, and he pushes a button and it arranges itself, the gravity and everything. Mm-hmm. And Nyssa just goes, or actually it was Nyssa or Tegan, I don't even remember, said, "Oh, I wish we would have known that after Castrovalva." And it was just like, yeah, it was just really, really interesting. And how the master trapped the pilot and the co-pilot in the TARDIS, and made it hover above the old factory or fortress or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. And then looking, and they were stuck looking down, and then the ghost of the professor came and saved the day.
I thought Stapley and his I don't know if it's the flight engineer or the first officer that he was with in the TARDIS, when they were kind of working against the master there, I thought for sure they were going to end up shrunk. I was like, they're going to die. They're going to end up shrunk, but they didn't. I thought they were really cool. They were like I don't know, they should have their own Big Finish series or something. Because they were actually
they were a pretty good double act.
Yeah, they were pretty good.
Yeah, it was interesting because I was hoping the master would shrink at least one person in this one.
Yeah,
well, they talked about it.
I was going to say, we found a bunch of Zeraphins.
I was going to say, he did when he got there, and then he's like, I'm done.
Bored now.
Shrinking humans is not really that interesting anymore.
But he carries that wand around with him, the whole time. It's like, oh, yeah. Ooh, it feels very threatening, him holding the black stick.
Yeah.
And I won't say what Judy thought it was when she walked into the room. It's like, why is he holding? But it's just like, it was just interesting and everything. Ainley is amazing. I love Ainley as the master. He was awesome. And it's sad that he didn't get to continue into the new series or such. That would have been really awesome to see at least once. Or even him going up against McGann's Doctor. Would have been pretty darn awesome.
Well,
wouldn't have been worse than what we got.
I was going to say. I don't think any of us are Eric Robert fans. So
no.
Yeah. I'm in two minds about Roberts in the TV movie. I will say, if you haven't heard him in the most recent Big Finish set, that you should definitely give it a go. They do some interesting stuff with him in that one, and I think he's really kind of come into the role there. I will say, speaking of Ainley and Big Finish, they tried to get him for one of the early ones with McCoy dust breeding. And apparently Ainley wanted a bucket load of money, and he wanted to rewrite the script. And he told him that those were his two conditions for coming back and playing the part.
Wow.
So unsurprisingly.
Yeah. I mean, but it did for those of us who are Big Finish fans. Jeffrey Beavers, who got, played the Master once, and Keeper of Traken got brought back in there, and he became the Big Finish master there for a while before they were able to start bringing others in. So, I mean, Ainley's loss was Beaver's gain, I suppose. But, I mean, I know from listening to Colin Baker and Peter Davison and even McCoy at conventions and stuff, Ainley loved playing the master. It was the one thing he really was doing in the last few years of his career. If you go look him up on IMDb, his TV credits throughout the 80s is just him playing the master, and watching Time Flight, for example. It's not hard to see why, because he is having a ball with it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
completely.
It was like, it was like he was getting as much out of it as Delgado has when you watch him. Like, they're just really good at being so bad, and the right amount of camp, I think, and they elevate the material. I mean, every time the master speaks, it's elevated. And this material is, I mean, it's not hard to elevate this material, but he does it, whereas some of the others just don't.
I mean,
including
once he takes the stupid mask off, he's becomes one of the most interesting characters, and certainly more so than the Doctor is. In this
I was going to
story.
say, including even Davison at times. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's when he's still taking it seriously. I do think starting maybe around King's Demon 5 Doctors, and until he comes back at the very end of Classic Who and Survival, he does kind of get into kind of pantomime mode. He gets a little too camp for my taste, but he's still playing it. I think, as you say, Mike, with the right amount of camp here. He's not quite crossed that threshold just yet.
Right.
Nope, that's a good way to put it. All right. Any other thoughts before we go ahead and review this masterpiece? Okay. 1 out of 5 TARDISes, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. Matthew, what about it?
Yeah, I'm actually going to give it, I think, a 2. Actually, I'm going to admit this one is a slight guilty pleasure for me. Is one to go back and watch if I'm having a bad day or something. It's one I'll go to, and as I said, it's early 80s Who's equivalent of Space Museum from the first Doctor era. It's got a very good first episode, setting up a lot of stuff. And it just never quite delivers on it because for reasons beyond my understanding as a budding writer, they turn it into a runaround instead of actually doing a story with it. It's not the greatest Doctor Who story ever made, but it's not the worst Doctor Who story ever made. And it's got some stuff in it that works. I love all the stuff with the Concorde. I love that first episode. I can live with the other 3 a little less, but it's not the worst Doctor Who story ever made.
Okay. That's Matthew's. It's not the worst Doctor Who story ever made. All right. Mikey.
I'll agree with that. It's not the worst Doctor Who story ever made. But
that's what they're going to put on the new box of it. It's not
the
worst. I am really trying hard to figure out some way to give it more than 1.5. But I can't. So I'm just gonna leave it there. With 1.5. I certainly wouldn't have anybody watch this as their first encounter with Doctor Who.
Oh no!
Oh God!
No, it would also be their last encounter with Doctor Who.
Yeah, exactly. Their first and last.
That's like showing them a Pip and Jane Baker story for
or as I kept running into with Modern Who, every time somebody tried to tune into it on BBC America, they would tune into Planet of the Dead, and people were like, "How do you like this show?" And it's like, "Why did you watch that one?"
I guess I can say that there's nothing in here that I would find offensive or close it. There's some close calls there, but it's not great, and I think it shows that this is the final serial of that season because it seems like everybody is just exhausted and just going through the motions here.
No, that's a good way to put it. That's a great way. All right, Mary.
I think I'm also going to give it a 1.5, and I don't know. I might have been kinder and given it a 2, maybe, but the music alone, I have to subtract half a point because it is bad. It is just the epitome of bad 80s Doctor Who music. So, and there's just not a lot of redeeming qualities here. I'd tell people to skip this one. There really isn't much of a reason to watch it. Even Peter Davison looks bored and like he can't wait to get out of this. So I don't think I can give it much more than 1.5.
As far as the ongoing story, though, it does have it has the sort of epilogue to Adric's death at the beginning, and then of course with Tegan being left behind, that leads into the next one. So watch the first 10 minutes and then the last 5 minutes.
And enjoy losing Adric again, and then enjoy losing Tegan.
Yeah. I mean, 80s Who wouldn't follow up a great story with a less than great one this badly until Case of Androzani was followed by Twin Dilemma.
Oh, wow.
Yes. You know what? I concur with that. That's a very
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Very apt comparison.
That is actually a great way to put it. All right, my rating. I've been debating on this one. I really, really was. You know, I used to say I will never give Doctor Who under a 3 because even bad Doctor Who is better than some other things on TV. But then we watched this one. And I'm going to give it probably a 2.5. And the only reason I'm giving it a 2.5 is for the Concorde in memory, you know. It gets that half.
An homage to the
An
Concorde.
homage to the Concorde.
Homage to a great vessel.
Yes.
Exactly, yeah. And, you know, there was no way of explaining why, you know, when the bad guy collapses and all this green goo starts coming out of his face and everything, and then all of a sudden the Master rips off it's the Master. It's like, did the Master have all this green goo in him or something?
No.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It was an illusion.
It didn't make sense. And there's just so many plot holes. You could fly a Concorde through this one real easily. And, you know, please, you know, take this with a grain of salt, folks. It is not a good episode. It really is not. But, you know, there's some great episodes following this one. And, you know, we get into some great, great stories with, you know, when you get into Arc of Infinity, you get into, you know, the whole Margarine Undead and, you know, the Brigadier comes back. And, you know, it's pretty awesome, the next, you know, 20th anniversary compared to what we witnessed here. So stick with it. If you're want to learn more about the Fifth Doctor, these are decent episodes. And the Fifth Doctor continuously does get better as it goes along. The Dalek story that they do later, and then of course, you know, how they end it with Caves of Androzani is just awesome and everything. It's probably my favorite Peter Davison episode. So
Oh, it's definitely mine. It's too bad it came at the end because that one's actually a good episode.
No, a lot of people have voted it in the best of his era. Hell, best of the 80s Doctor Who.
Yeah, I was just saying the big 2009 DWM poll. It was the best Doctor Who story of all time at one point. So
yeah, it is a great, great story. So definitely stick with this, folks. You know, then the Sixth Doctor comes away, and you know you might just run. So we'll have to. You know, it's a whole nother story for another time, though.
Along with most of the British public.
Oh yeah. Join us back again next time. We are going to the 10th Doctor era, and we are going to, you know, of course, we haven't done a Cybermen story in a little bit, so we thought it'd be kind of cool to do Rise of the Cybermen and Age of Steel, the two-parter. And it's actually, you know, this is, I feel like, when Mickey comes into his own, and it's a great, great story. It is a really awesome story, and it's a parallel Earth with the Doctor, so it's pretty cool. Definitely worth checking out. So on behalf of myself, Mike Faber, let's thank everyone else who's been here tonight. Mary Ogle, thank you as always.
Oh, thank you. At least I'm sort of making me watch Time Flight again. But it's always fun
I will
to talk
never
to you
make
guys.
you watch this one. I will never, ever make you watch this one again. Anything you want to shout out about?
You can find my artwork at maryogle.com. And I have a novel coming out this year.
I love the cover.
Thank you. It's in a couple of months. But if you would like more information, just go to maryogle.com and sign up for my newsletter, and I will let you know when it's released.
Awesome. And Mr. Mike Gordon.
As always, it's my pleasure. Even when we watch bad ones, it's always fun to talk to you guys about it.
Oh, very much so. And Matthew, thank you for sitting in with us tonight.
Oh, thank you. As I said, this one's always a bit of a guilty pleasure for me. So, you know, it's not the greatest story ever made, but it's always kind of nice to go back and revisit it at the same time.
Oh, most definitely. Do you want to promote your stuff real quick?
I have some new short fiction out. If you want to read something of mine that is free, I recently did a alternate history story set at a Doctor Who convention, asking what might have happened if Doctor Who had been made as an anime in the 1980s. So you can check that out at vocal.media/futurism/1pm-panel. And as I said at the top of things, if you want to read more of my reviews about Who and also Apple TV series For All Mankind, you can check me out on warpfactor.com.
And he also posts up in the ESO Network Facebook group.
Indeed I do.
Exactly, and thank you for that. We always do appreciate it. Of course, we appreciate you guys at home so much. Please, folks, please take care of yourselves. We love that you guys come back. We love that you guys are listening. And, of course, in this dead time of Doctor Who, we are going to continue trudging through. I think in a couple weeks, we actually have a Facebook Live coming up again. So it would be great to get folks involved with that. Definitely would love to hear from you guys. Feedback at earthstationwho.com. And if you are new to the show, thank you as always. And please subscribe to us wherever fine podcasts are found. You know, we're even there, as we like to say on the other show. So please, definitely check us out. On behalf of us all here at Earth Station Who, we will see you next time. Peace, and we are done. Boom.
Shalom, 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 shalom. Shalom, 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 shalom.
Ramalama ding dong.
You have been listening to Earth Station Who, a bi-weekly pop culture podcast dedicated to all things Doctor Who, featuring talents from across the universe. All topics on the show are the sole opinions of the individual and are used for entertainment value alone. You can subscribe to our podcast up on iTunes, Stitcher, or follow our blog at www.esopodcast.com. You can also follow us up on Facebook, Twitter, or Google+. If you enjoyed the show, please leave feedback up on iTunes.
We are the Earth Station 1 podcast, and we approve this message.
Hey, I'm Judy, and I've been a listener of Earth Station 1 for over 10 years. Yeah, every day while Mike edited together over 550 episodes, you know all that geek-themed blah, blah, blah. I've listened so much that now I hear howdy in my sleep. You too can enjoy all the Earth Station 1 fun wherever fine podcasts are found. Okay, Mike, I did this for you. Are we going to get another dog now?
The Earth Station 1 podcast. Over 10 years for geeks by geeks.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.